To start off with, obviously lovely to see you today, Stefan. I think actually just before we could get involved, it'd be great to just know a bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, good to see you too, mate. So for everyone else who doesn't know me, I'm Stefan. I've worked in the affiliate industry for about 8 years now, 7 or 8 years. So getting on to be a bit of a veteran. But yeah, I've worked agency side for a long time. People might know me from my time at Summit Media up in the lovely Hull in East Yorkshire. And then, yeah, I'm now currently at Vivobarefoot. Which is, yeah, nice change for going from agency side to client side, but yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, good to be here. Appreciate you inviting me on.
Thank you for joining us. Please tell me you have some of the shoes on right now. I'm not going to ask you to do the stretches, but please tell me you have some on.
I have some within an arm's reach, but being honest, I don't have any shoes or socks on. So I'm currently barefoot, living the true meaning of the name. You know.
So love that very much. So I guess we can maybe go into Vivo itself a little bit. Can you tell us exactly kind of what Vivo Barefoot sells and a little bit about your typical customer?
Yeah, so giveaway is a little in the name, but we sell barefoot shoes. And to anyone that doesn't know, it's essentially a wider toe boxed shoe. So a little more room for your toes to kind of stretch at the end, and typically thinner soles. So we have quite thin soles on the shoes, but that gives you like an enhanced kind of experience or feeling to where you are. So your feet are allowed to be feet a little more, increase the feeling that they're getting. So, and I suppose a typical customer, I put myself into that hat because prior to working for the brand, I wore the shoes for like 7 years. For me, it started in the gym. It was just about wanting to have a better connection with kind of lifts and better form. And I think feeling your feet and the power and transfer of things there. I played American football, so I had a lot of benefits, I think, that happened from that training and that sprinting in the shoes. I just found the benefit of my kind of foot health, but it was ultimately wanting to explore how to improve foot health. And then there's just such a vast array of benefits that come with that, which I think people want to explore. So I think that would probably be a typical customer, someone just looking to try and increase their foot health and curious about the benefits that come with that.
Nice. It's always nice to actually be passionate about the brand, right? I guess actually I'm sure many affiliate managers who do, work in a certain product, not necessarily the users of it. So it's really nice
Right.
that you have a passion point on that one.
It helps. And I think it's an interesting combination for sure, because it's when I have conversations with people, I feel like I know what I'm talking about because I was the customer. Like I understand the product and I've walked in them for so long. So it's definitely nice to have aligned the two. Really cool, to be fair.
So you've taken a walk in the shoes, as they say. Cool.
There you go.
What part of the sales funnel is Vivo kind of super focus on right now? What are you trying to do?
We have some big milestones coming up in terms of kind of business side, revenue size, all that type of thing. So it's new customer acquisition, I think, is the main thing. Is so really trying to get the brand out there, known more, and ultimately getting those new customers in. That's the main thing, I think. And then obviously there's so many things that kind of play up into that big kind of picture stuff. But I think ultimately is getting more new customers into the brand.
Nice, because Vivo's quite rapidly growing, right? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're both the US and UK at the moment.
Yeah, so we operate worldwide from a marketing sense. We cover main markets being the UK, US, and Germany, and then we do operate in others kind of around the world, but those markets are certainly the kind of bigger market.
What made you start exploring brand partnerships as a growth lever out of pure interest?
Well, to be honest, I've known of you guys for a long time. I think if we let everyone into that, I've kind of seen the journey. When I worked agency side, we had clients that had some forms of things live and had many which we would try to get live and maybe didn't quite get there. So it's kind of on previous experience. But I mean, I've seen a lot of the impacts and a lot of the things that you guys post online and everything there, and seen the growth of things. So I think ultimately, because I knew it was there and I knew we had these, targets of things and what ways can we contribute and kind of add ideas into the mix. And ultimately, it's one that wasn't being explored at the time. And I felt I could, put that in there and see if it's something that could be explored. So yeah, it makes sense a lot as well as to certain things. I mean, obviously, we're doing the loyalty side too. So there's multi-factor into how we wanted to look at it. But I think, yeah, it's previous experience from my side and something we weren't currently exploring.
Interesting. And you touched on the point there, which is that you're looking at it from maybe both a customer acquisition perspective and a loyalty perspective. Do you feel that, for example, brand partnerships with Vivo could actually help you in that kind of full funnular approach a bit?
I certainly think so. I think, you know, if you're at checkout and you need a little extra push over the edge, sometimes it doesn't take too much to convince you. I mean, I'm sure we've all been in carts and then gone, maybe not. And then you'll leave it and then you'll maybe go back to it and then you'll keep doing it for a while and something will convince you. But the idea is then to how can you maybe convince them a little quicker? And just little incentives, I think, make sense to have in there from that side. And then from a loyalty side, I mean, also, just going back to that, I've been affected by that. I've been to checkouts and then I've been like, oh, but I also get this and this, and I could make use of that. And it helps. I've been personally impacted. And then from a loyalty side, I think, you know, there's a lot of brands which I know like relationships with us or ultimately would align with our brand of values and what we want to achieve and what we want to do. So our customers are really loyal customers. Once they're in with us, it makes sense to give them extra. And I think the idea of being able to present them with some brands they will likely, you know, like, I think that also is appealing and also something we weren't doing at the time. And then luckily it timed up with something internally about how we're looking to expand this kind of My Vivo or the login experience of being a Vivo customer, and then coincided very nicely, to be honest.
Definitely, this was not a paid placement, I'd like to confirm for those
No,
who are perhaps
I will,
listening.
no, it's not.
Fair enough. And so we kind of touched on it a little bit already, but what customer behaviors, like a drop off at checkout or high bounce rates or poor engagements indicated to Vivo that a change was needed? What was the core struggle that maybe this is helping you overcome?
I think everyone wants to have a better conversion rate, right? I think ultimately that's such a good metric to have. Like if you can convert more of the customers you're getting on your site, then you're going to make more money. So I think ultimately it's how do we convert? We've got, we're doing very well from a traffic and an eyes perspective. And it's also being considerate of, we're not just buying a pair of shoes. It's almost you're buying a potential lifestyle change. So it comes with a greater period of consideration for that purchase, especially if you're a new customer, because then you're constantly having, well, if I like this, then I've got to get more of those, and then there's a price point, and then everything then becomes a little harder entry point. So I think trying to give a little more to those that are kind of on the edge, I think it makes sense. I think to add something in there, or at least try and incentivize that journey a little more, because we do understand that there is a greater consideration period. But ultimately, I think those people that do come on there, they do want the product. It's maybe just, can we tempt them to get it sooner than they may have it? Ultimately, they probably would still end up getting it, but it might take a little longer. So hopefully that makes sense. It does in
Yeah, no,
my head, at
absolutely.
least.
No, I agree, right? And I think the thing that you said at the beginning of the answer makes the most amount of sense, right? Like, I don't think anyone would ever complain if their checkout performs better, right? Like
Exactly.
it's an
Oh no,
absolute,
oh,
no, we got more
conversion rate's
sales and we
gone up. We've
made
got
more
more
money
sales.
without spending any more money. Yeah, no, I couldn't
Disaster.
possibly want that. How will you evaluate if your audience responded positively to a gift with purchase offer? Is it purely just the conversion rate? Like, is there any subjective factors behind that? How do you guys plan to measure it?
I think ultimately impact on conversion rate is one metric, but I think hopefully there'll be some level of customer feedback, or at least in some point, maybe there'll be some form of indication we get as part of that. Maybe because, oh, I appreciate the update, or, whatever it might be. There might be things there, but ultimately I think the main things we can measure is conversion rate, and ultimately redemptions. We'll be able to see, who is picking what, and what maybe is resonating more. And then I think the idea of testing and A/B testing things, learning from what customers are interacting with and are putting into their basket and are seeing that kind of value in there, then I think there's kind of multiple ways that we will look to measure it. And I think those will probably be the biggest tells, any improvement to that conversion rate, and ultimately if people are indeed converting on those gifts.
I think what might be interesting for you guys is because obviously you'll get insights about example, if you're running 3 gifts at once, here's 3 different ones, and maybe they're quite contrasting. You might
Mhm.
actually learn something quite interesting about your audience in the sense of like they prefer this kind of gift, like this kind of category, that something like that. I think some of that will be interesting to overlay into future gifting choices of like, okay, the better we get at this, maybe the greater effect we can have on that basket completion rate as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be the cool thing because it's, it's obviously there's a lot of different options that you can potentially trial in there. And then ultimately the customers are the one that will dictate what happens there. But I think we can put some best guesses in place and then just test and learn. The old test and learn.
Love an A/B test. It's exactly what we always love, right? When you were trying to work out, the brand partnerships were for you, did you review any case studies or examples of stuff before moving forward? Did it feel like just obvious, or did anything else kind of sway your mind in terms of taking that plunge, I guess?
From my side, no. Again, just from personal experience and obviously understanding and knowing the product and its value. I think from who I needed to speak to, fortunately for me, my manager has a really strong background in affiliate marketing and understands a lot of the propositions. And there's obviously a lot that work through the channel and obviously having that ease of access to kind of go live. I think it was more about what value could it add and how does it do that. So seeing that and being able to share the case studies with him, I think also helped, at least get that initial conversation in place. And then it was a case of here's the offering, here's what we can do. And then that was the convincing thing. And then it's ultimately goes to the next stage of making sure that other people can kind of get on board with that too. But it certainly helps having like the shark stuff and everything from that side. I mean, it's and personal experience. I just know it works. So it's more just how can we make it work was ultimately the angle.
I guess the good thing is that you understand the concept, right? I guess for those or other brands who are like, okay, at my level, I want to do it, but I need to kind of go to the stakeholders above me who have ultimate
Mhm.
sign off. Would you maybe have any particular tips for them?
Again, I think there's sometimes those ideas of things are too good to be true. It's like, well, you only pay for the sales that actually come through, or you'll get things that will come through from sales that have been made. You can test in so many different ways, and ultimately just being willing to test at some point, like even if it's like segmented into traffic and it's like a percentage of a certain region and things like that, because that's how likely we'll get going with things. It's testing in like the UK and then ultimately looking to see impact on there and then building out from there. So it's then just being willing to trust that, well, actually this can have an impact and it's had impact for multiple other companies. So there's no other reason why it wouldn't be able to do the same thing, and it's offering a good value to the customer. So it's not taking away from the journey. If anything, it's enhancing that journey because of what it's being offered, and it's for the customer. It's just being, just take the plunge, just give it a test, and you'll probably be pleasantly be surprised, and then go, we should have done this earlier. It's like, yeah,
Told you.
well, I notice how I didn't say that,
No,
but
it's an
that
interesting
was
one, right?
implied. Yeah.
I think you're lucky because you clearly work for a business which is very adept at testing, and it clearly sounds like it's part of the culture.
Mhm.
I think for some other, people in our industry, maybe it's not quite as easy to get that signed off, right?
Well, having worked agency side and seen sometimes what it's like when you go to a client and you're so excited about an idea, you've got this great thick like pitch planned out, and then it's going to work, it's going to have an impact, and then it's just like, oh, I don't know about that. You're like, well, why not? Like I get there's a level of skepticism in places, and I've been at a part of those where you've then been shut down and not been able to do something, and it's frustrating because it can have impacts, and I've seen it's had impacts, and I think I understand it's not. I am lucky in that regards because they are very adept at testing and making sure that things work, and we can try and find. And for me, it's all about trying to find what's that sweet spot. How do we, in order to get that and what works to make it really easy manage, you have to test things. You have to, and if you don't, then you're not going to be able to see the true like scope of how much value can you get out of your website and your current customers or future customers. Like there's just so much which makes sense, which it then just, I do get skepticism about trying new things, but ultimately, those who do have a hard time, you just got to be persistent. You've got to keep trying and keep going and keep hounding Adrian and Chris and make sure that they give you all the collateral you need. And you should hopefully win that, It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
For sure. I feel like I've just heard the first half of like the Braveheart speech, by the way. Like that was passionate. I really loved it.
Well, that again, it's for everyone. I wasn't paid. Like this is, I just when things work, they work, and it's. I just want. Plus, from my own personal, like if you call it selfish perspective, I just want to see something go live that you've had implemented, and then you can just see the impact it's having, and then just go, knew it.
I love the confidence there, with also like a little touch of humility, just to make
Well,
sure,
yeah, you always stay humble, but you've got to celebrate the wins, and it's it's important too.
100%. Great answer, by the way, on that one. So you kind of slightly touched on it, but what metrics or forecasts do you think helped you to build a business case? What numbers or like what things do you think ultimately helped you seal a deal and getting a test live?
Well, from our side, it was probably in the reverse of what you'd initially wanted to happen, because I think Gifts with Purchase is easy go, like it's an easy like go live. And I think from our side, because it timed up with this loyalty project we've had going on, it made sense to look at it from that side first. And I know it will be covered slightly later, but it's a very easy go live. So it's almost been kind of like we've had this plan in place to use it. We know it's there. We know what we're going to do with it. It's going to go live. And then the rest of it's like, well, but there are other things we can do. So I think initially it was, here's how we can have an impact. We can essentially create a revenue stream out of customers, and it rewards on that basis. And then the other side is then, well, how can we use a really awesome benefit or else almost a more impactful benefit of how can we get more customers? So it was kind of the flip side. It was the kind of, this was how the introduction was done, and then it shifted to, hey, they can also do this. From at least my side and my manager's side, it's like, we want that test in place, because I'm very confident it'll work. He's very confident also, but it's just, you want to see it. Like, I want to see it live. I want to see it, having that impact. And then it's just getting, everyone else on board and the timings of things. And then which will go first live, I'm not sure, but my bet would probably be loyalty. But I think we'll see. I don't know. Not taking bets though.
Fair enough. More than fair enough. Will you be looking to kind of test the idea on a smaller scale before kind of ramping up to 100%? I know we talked earlier about, there's options around testing. We want to try and a certain kind of portion of traffic first. Is that, in your guys' opinion, like a pragmatic approach? Like what do you think about that, I guess, in essence?
I think that makes the most sense. And I think that will also be the way to get it signed off in terms of I think it'll be a UK market start. I think it will be a percentage of traffic. And then obviously then looking at the performance over, you guys, I'm sure will have a suggestion on what period of time we should look to test it and scale and then ultimately see what those impacts are. And as long as we can get that kind of agreed period, I think I'm confident we'll be able to have those impacts in that time frame. So, kind of starting small, scaling up, and then ultimately, should it go the way I would expect it to, then it'll be a case of, well, how then do we expand beyond the UK market and look to kind of tap into that same experience for customers in other markets as well. So that's the plan.
Nice. I think for the benefit, the way that we tend to look at it is that, of course, you want to reach statistical significance, right? So how long you run it for, what percentage of traffic to a degree obviously does matter, but also doesn't matter is when have we got enough data to say confidently to, 90%, 95% accuracy, like this is the result that we get. I think the interesting thing that we've learned as well is that different markets can behave differently. So you need to do different tweaks. Just for example, if you run the UK first and you run it on 50% for 2 weeks, then you reach that significance. Doesn't mean let's automatically roll it into the US. You need to take the same approach again because buying behaviors very differently. It happens per market. For example, Germany. Germany's very different to the UK, like in terms of what they like, the UX, everything else as well. So I'll definitely say for every geographic expansion, run the same systematic kind of process until you reach the statistical thing that you need to.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the team, your guys' side, will have that guidance, and I think we'll be able to feed back along the way. I think, and ultimately, I'm very confident once we get something in place and it's going, that it's going to do what it says on the tin. I won't say the brand just because but the brand. But yeah, I think that's the long term approach, I think, to it, and then ultimately testing and seeing what offers resonate, and the same from the loyalty side, like what are the customers dictating? What do they want? Are there any new brands that we can get in there that we really want to work with, and any offers that we specifically think would work really well with our customers? Obviously, being the brand we are, we're a B Corp, we're very sustainable focused, but there's a lot of brands that align in many ways. I think it'll be a really fun one to get live and just go on that journey with, and just see what sort of impacts that can have. But ultimately, it's what can we make sure the customers are getting, and it's what's the value that they're going to get from that. And if we can find that sweet spot where we know people like X, Y, and Z, we do this at this time of year, whatever it might be, then I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to that point of it. I'm sure there'll be loads of things we'll learn along the way, especially in all the different markets you're at. The US, I've noticed, again, from an affiliate perspective, it's similar in some ways, but very different in a lot of others. And Germany, I mean, our affiliate channel is very efficient, which is probably unsurprising, again, being a German market. But the channel there has been an interesting exploration for me. It's still fairly new to me. I'd not had too much German affiliate market experience, but it's what I've learned thus far has been really good, and it's exciting to be in that space. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can grow even more, because it's a very barefoot friendly market, Germany. They're really into that sort of things. Everyone gets out, and there's a lot of hikers and walkers, and it connects a lot with what we are as a brand. How can we roll that out everywhere and give the customers a really good experience, as well as on their feet, but also when they're a customer, they also get, looked after from that regards too. So yeah, there's a lot that goes to it.
Yeah, I think, I think brand partnerships can really much work in the same way, to your point. I think there's definitely nuances per market. And it's, as with everything, I think you kind of need to build a hypothesis of what you think is going to be
Hmm.
the story that unfolds in terms of, this is what we expect our German audience to do based on what we know about them. This is what our UK one or US one. But of course, a hypothesis is just a hypothesis, right? Again, it's a case of we might get it right 70% up front, but then, how do we get it to 80%? How do we get it to 90%? I always tend to say to people, like, expecting 100% of getting it right all the time is unrealistic. Same
Yeah,
as
no
running your
chance.
affiliate program, right? You'll get some partners wrong, and that's fine. It's a case of, how do you get the big wins?
Yeah, and I think from going back to the how do you get things signed off, it also that lovely CPA perspective of things. It's like, if it doesn't work, you haven't paid for it to not work. When it boils down to it, I think ultimately um it's just a no-brainer in a lot of ways. But just getting it into that same mindset for others, I think is it's not an issue. It happens everywhere. So it's just getting on board more so, getting on board that brand partnership train.
Gotta love the brand partnership train. I might try and roll that into something else. Great phrase. Obviously, as with any tech partner, right, there's always kind of the question of like, oh, how difficult is it to do? Our tech resource is really low. What technical operation hurdles did you think you would face, and what was the reality?
I think whenever there's the general perspective, whenever there's new tech, it's always, there's going to be some form of deep integration. It's going to have to go in some IT backlog of things that need to be done. It's going to take ages to roll out. It's, all that type of thing. But because of that old MasterTag and ultimately ease of getting going with things that way, I think it was a pleasant surprise to that team. They've had this big project going on internally of getting this loyalty thing, and there's a lot of moving parts with linking Magento and various other moving parts of platforms. And then when this one came up, and it was like, oh, that's all it is. So that then, as I said earlier on, that's meant it's the integration has been going great. We're in a good place with it, but this integration was pushed back towards the back end of it because of how easy it would be to integrate. They were just like, oh, that's not going to be a problem. So it's just planned in. It's been, I mean, said to you for a while, it's been greenlit for ages. So we're just like waiting for that team to kind of get everything else sorted. Then we'll get that in place, and then boom, customers will have that new logged in experience and be able to get access to things. That's going to be a cool rollout, to be honest, because it'd be interesting to see how everyone responds, because we're bringing Vivo Health in that too. That's our educational courses, so you can sign up for those. So if anyone does, sometimes you get them with shoes, and you can sign up and ultimately learn more about the benefits of barefoot, or maybe it's the particular, there's fundamentals, maybe it's a particular thing like a yoga based thing or movement or trail running and things like that. But you'll get access to those, and then you'll also have access to your orders, everything from that side, and then you'll have your loyalty side, which will then be kind of a reward points, and then this side, which will then have what they can get from a offers perspective from other non-competes and various companies we want to partner with and put across.
Yeah, you make an interesting point there, actually, which is that this is only just one small bit of a very big kind of brand revolution for you, right? Because I think to your point there, for the clarity of everyone, you've kind of never had a logged in area to a degree, right? It's like, actually, we have all of these different things that we must do before we get to the point of doing rewards. How did the thing I'm interested about is like, that's a very large strategic decision to do all of that at once. What possessed the business to be like, yeah, fine, let's just do everything. Let's like rip the band-aid off. Let's just do it all at once.
I think we had this, we needed to bring or consolidation, but like Vivo Health was on a separate platform. So if you had an account for Vivo Barefoot, it would be a different login for Vivo like Health. There is other platforms which had other logins. So then it just needed to come together so that it could then be a better access for everyone else. So you'd been able to log in, obviously see all your account information, but if you wanted to then go see your Vivo Health, you'd have to go elsewhere. And from that reward side, that's never been implemented, and they've not had there's been a refer a friend program, but there's never been a loyalty program. So that's something that they're also introducing at the same time. So it's going to have this whole kind of refreshed approach of what that will look like, and that's all still fully being defined as to what that will be. That's what the refresh will ultimately come out, and we'll be able to have all of these different areas which customers will then get access to be able to just have that better logged in customer experience. And if they do have Vivo Health courses, then they can still access it from their one vivobarefoot.com login, as opposed to having to go to all these various other places. So it just seemed, again, like a perfect addition to that overhaul of things, to then have that kind of give back to the customer side of things, where they could then, yes, they're going to get the loyalty for shopping with us, but also if you do go shop elsewhere, here's a bit of a discount, or, if you do buy something, then check this out. Maybe you can benefit from things that way.
Have you guys considered something along approach along the lines of when you launch the Vivo account area, you email everyone who would be applicable to be like, hey, you've got this new account area, come in today and claim a gift of X, Y, Z. Have you guys considered that as a nice kind of almost like way to lure people in to sign up for those accounts?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'm not sure, because there's a big old team working on it from the holistic perspective. I'm sure there's probably some cool things that we could suggest forwards to that, as and when we're getting towards that launch. I think it's penciled, or we should say penciled, for October. So it's September, October time, I believe. But it's really close, and I know the team that side, they've been working really hard on pulling all that project together, and it's going to be really cool, I think, to see that new experience, and then obviously playing a part in that with this integration and things there is going to be it's good to see how customers respond, and then hopefully we can get things going with the gift we purchase, and then it's that kind of full experience then has really been increased for across the board for customers. Like it's just improved, substantially, I would say, once all of that's in place. So that's going to be really exciting to see all of that materialize. But it's definitely been a big project. Hats off to everyone for getting it in a good place and nearing launch now.
If you could give a piece of advice to a brand considering doing brand partnerships, what would that be?
I would say, first of all, make sure that you just get everyone on board, that you commit to the test. I think that's the main thing. It's just, you need people on board to ultimately make sure that it's everyone can get on board with it, and then understand what benefit that's going to have. I think from a sign-off perspective, it's a case of working with Adrian and the team that side. They'll give you everything you need to convince the powers that be, or at least get them on a call with them so they can convince them. But suggest it, because it's certainly an exciting area, and I think it opens up. It's kind of a really cool, different angle to it. As an affiliate manager, it opens up a really cool new angle to affiliate marketing from my perspective, because then we work with a lot of different businesses, and with that, a lot of different people. But this is just that slightly different, where it's then business to business. And it's like, well, we're kind of similar. Like we should try and help each other out from that side. Like can we come up with a good offer that we can test with your customers or our customers? Like, these closer relationships that can build? I mean, your customers are likely going to be shopping with those brands anyway. So if we're friends in that regard, it's like, well, at least they know they're connected. So it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of different brands from what we are as a brand that makes sense for us to try and have some form of brand partnership with, because we know our customers are going to go over and shop with them. And if we can send someone or introduce, or at least they'll go to our customers, hey, if you go and shop with X brand, you can get 20% off with us or whatever. Use little things like that, or whatever it might be. I think, it's a no-brainer. So you've just got to get them on a call, get them to convince them, and then just don't be afraid to get that test in place, because there's no negatives. Ultimately, it's like, oh no, I've given an offer to someone else and they've bought something at 20% off. They've bought something. Okay, maybe it wasn't much. You didn't lose anything. Okay, it didn't go the way you wanted, but it hasn't. There's no negative from that side. So it's you just got to just keep being persistent, and then make sure that and then it's finding the right brands to work with. That's the next thing. It's like, who aligns with you? Because there's going to be some which will be probably applicable to way more brands. I mean, for us, we're kind of unique in a sense of, the way we're positioned as a business, being a B Corp and sustainably focused. Like, it makes more sense for us to partner with brands of similar ilk than it would be to, go with, I won't name anything, but go with something more, mainstream, if you will, from that side. But some will work exceptionally well, I'm sure, from that side. So it's just about testing what works with your customers. But there's so much on offer that it just makes sense just to give it a go. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Nothing's happened. But I guarantee it will work. So it's, you just got to give it a try, and just try and convince the powers that be to stick with it, because it will work.
Mini Braveheart, loved it. So we've kind of gone through the schematics of brand partnerships. I'm just curious, what's a dream brand that you'd love to partner with yourselves as Vivobarefoot, and why that particular brand?
There's probably a few for me personally. I think if we're talking loyalty side of things, or at least brands having included in there, I think the likes of, like, for me, a Patagonia or someone like that would make a lot of sense. They don't sell shoes to my knowledge. We do. We don't sell clothes. They sell awesome clothes. Our customers will be very similar in a lot of ways. So something like that would make a lot of sense for us. But then there's brands like that. For example, Gymshark, I mean, huge name, obviously very popular, would be a great offer to be able to present to customers. And like Ben, the chap who owns Gymshark, I don't think I think I've seen one picture where he's not been wearing a pair of Vivos. So like there's an association, or at least a link with the brands already. So having something in place with a brand like that would make sense, because there's a lot of crossover with people who will discover our brand that way, or have some form of lifting and gym culture and all that side of things. I mean, our gym range and the things it's very good. So like and I'm not just saying it, I had these shoes before working for the brand. So it's like, I've had multiple pairs that they're so good in the gym. So I think that would be another one, which would be a cool one, I think, to kind of have announced that we partnered from this perspective. Like, obviously they're ginormous name, but we're very linked in a lot of ways. So I think those two would be two big ones for me. That would be a cool one to kind of have offered out. I think that would resonate well with customer base. There's loads. I'm sure there's a whole bunch that would probably like to get in there.
Yeah, I think we've probably got about 700 options in the UK at the moment you can realistically pick from here and now. And I think to your point, I guess the key thing that you said there was affinity, right? Like the affinity between your user base and them, and creating a perception of value for your customers. I
Mm.
guess rudimentally, obviously we talked about Patagonia and Gymshark, but it is that affinity that maybe you personally see it as, like, this is how we give value. This is how we get people to be more loyal to Vivo, right?
Yeah, and I think that will be the same of a lot of other brands. I think if I flip it and think about it, why would someone want to work with us? We offer a lot of value from that side. Like, if you're trying to push a sustainable thing, like, okay, we got you covered. Like, if you're trying to push a health focused thing, okay, yeah, we got you covered. Like premium footwear, yeah, we've got you covered there too. Like all seasons, yeah, we have all different types of shoes, and it's like we can offer a discount. So there's so many, perks from, I think, the idea of what it would be like to work with a brand like Vivo. But then, yeah, I think it's it just needs to get involved in it. That's the main thing. It's just being involved and then getting to I mean, 700 different options. I mean, that's going to be a hard pressed on a page of however many 10 offers or so, and then I suppose gift for purchase is going to be quite a number of offers that side too, which less so from our side. I don't think we can really give away. That'd be a fun one, though, wouldn't
it? For sure. I think the
real random just give away a couple of pairs of shoes to some. Maybe that could be a good one to do.
We could try it.
Random, like you could set it at 5 and then just show 5 random ones and like, hang about, they've just said I can get a pair of Vivos at checkout for free. Maybe we should try that.
It was really interesting what you said there, by the way, to go back one step, was that there's multiple ways that you can link your brand to another brand. And that's a really interesting thing, right? Because I'm sure many people look at it like it's very linear, like, does that brand match me or does it not? And to your point, right, you guys have outdoor walking options. You have indoor like stuff, you can wear them to the gym. There's actually multiple different audiences that you, just as one brand, could tap into multiple other brands. And I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, having those key categories, like you say, the outdoor, we have the kind of, if you call it a fitness range, but ultimately it's your gym shoes and then like your studio-based shoes, your yoga shoes, things that you can move very freely in. The outdoor stuff, kind of waterproof, warm, everything that. So those that kind of are in those verticals, like if you're an outdoor enthusiast and you discover the brand, like we've got everything you'll need, and I guarantee you'll enjoy the experience of what it's like doing those things you love, but then having a little extra connection with your feet.
I think the final thing I was going to say there, which would be interesting, I think, from also gifting your shoppers, that could be very interesting, right? Like doing that dynamically. For example, if we assume you've got the Vivo outdoor range, right? And let's assume it's for, for hiking, we can probably make some assumptions that maybe you own a dog. So actually we'll give you something that's related to your dog as a gift to maybe help you to encourage to buy those outdoor shoes. Or by contrast, for your fitness shoes, like, okay, what do you do when you go to the gym? You might listen to music. So here's an offer of X months on your favorite streaming service. I think that's an interesting place as well. How do we break down your audience and try and create the most accurate gifting depending on what rudimentally they're buying in the first place?
We have all of our internal personas, if you will, of the different types of people that wear Vivos. There's all sorts of names. I know one's a conscious maverick, and there's all sorts of different things that will fit into these different categories. But ultimately, we have such a, like you say, that deep range in those key verticals. But the main thing coming up is that kind of, we've got all of that's covered, but it's then the general, it's the why should you care about wearing barefoot shoes or our barefoot shoes your day to day, when you go into the office, when you go into the city, when you go about your day to day, you go to the shops or whatever it might be. What's the benefit and why? And I think that's the next kind of brand campaign that's coming up, is ultimately that place for them in general day to day. Plus, I'll be honest, I mean, I know you have a pair, but walking around London in a pair of barefoot shoes, I mean, you're feeling some texture changes going around in all those different places. And it's as everyone knows, it's a busy old city, but when your feet feeling those things, when you're walking around, it kind of slows for me anyway, it slows the city down a bit more, because I get a little overwhelmed. I'm a northern boy. I'm not used to all of the kind of hustle and bustle of London, but I find, because I'm feeling where my feet are, I'm here, and it's less like as everywhere else. It kind of brings you into that. So it's a cool feeling walking around a city in barefoot shoes. It's something I would, obviously I'd recommend, but if it's definitely worth doing.
It's interesting. I wore my Vivos actually to Rome. And obviously there's lots of cobbled streets in Rome. So to a degree, one could have felt, slightly more connected to the history of all that was.
You went straight into,
I think I did 30,000 steps and I was like, I'm just going to, really.
Yeah, having not worn them, which, I would also probably not recommend, but you had a great time from feedback, and I'm sure it was a good experience. But it was more so you probably shouldn't run in them immediately, I think is
not really a runner anyway.
No,
so it's fine. It's okay.
Nor I. I did join. We're currently doing a couch to 5K, which I've decided to join, that Vivo are doing. So I don't know at what point in a 5K training thing you can call yourself a runner, but I'm looking to get to that point.
Technically, more than one step is going for a run if it's at a certain speed. It's good to put it out there.
Maybe I'm a runner now.
Well, I've got two final questions to help us wrap up. So, the first one is, what role do you think these brand partnerships will play as acquisition costs keep rising? How do you think that might negate some of that a little bit?
I think from his role in general, I think just adding the extra value from both sides, it makes sense for us, or at least it makes sense to me as to, why you would want to try and get customers a little easier or more cost effectively than paying for X, Y, and Z and not having any, guarantees or any, if your conversion rate's still having a hard time and you're paying and getting loads more eyes to the site and you're still not able to convert them, as that missing maybe secret sauce that you've not quite got to, whether it's price point, whether it's discount, or whether it literally is just like a little push over the edge. And that's what I see a lot of this being, is that kind of push over the edge of, it's in the basket, it's ready there. But I also get, and that's how my mind shifts. And I think a lot may resonate with that, or at least it play a part, or maybe you go back sooner. You think, if I do get that, I can get X from insert food delivery service here, and maybe we could do that for a month. Okay, I'll go back and I'll go get those shoes because we can also get this. Like something like that. It makes sense. Like if you just put yourself in your own, like when you go shopping, what do you think of? And then that applies to so many people. So then you just got to try and, if you think, oh, well, this helps benefit my journey, it probably help do that to a lot of other people. And you only pay, in theory, for those ones that you do convert. So what there's no real risk. Yeah, I think it seemed a smart way to try and get more out of what you've currently got, as opposed to paying a whole bunch for potential other things you might never convert from.
Nice. And to wrap it up, so final question. Obviously, thank you so much for doing today. I guess, where can people follow what you're doing next? Where can people follow not just yourself, but like Viva Barefoot? How can we help you at the end of the day?
Well, I'd recommend everyone to go to vivobarefoot.com and have a little peruse, and a little look around and see what you think. We have a lot of different types of shoes on there for all sorts of occasions. If you've got kids, back to school range is live. But from what's going on here, I think we're on this brand partnership journey, and it's going to start to expand a little more in the coming months, as and when we launch or relaunch our My Vivo login experience with all these extra additions that will be in place. And then no doubt when all that's live, I'll be very excitedly posting about it on LinkedIn, and so you can welcome to follow there if you would like to stay up to date. Or maybe Adrian will give me a repost, so you might not even need to follow me. You can just follow him, and then he'll do it, because they always post. So yeah, I'm sure if you really want to see affiliate North, I'll be doing something affiliate North, Philly Fest North.
Anything up north?
There's anything up north, you'll see me at in the coming months. PI Live, obviously. So I say there's loads. I love the affiliate channel. It's so many different things going on. It's nice to have like a new fun area to start to look forward to working in. And if you feel like you're watching this and you think, oh, Vivo, good brand, I'd like to do that, then you know who you need to speak to maybe sort something out there.
Well, yeah, if any brand wants to speak to you directly, I guess, obviously they can contact us through your email, and we can happily pass that over, or I guess drop you a note on LinkedIn, right? Probably the two best ways to get hold of you.